welcome to The AI Age Begins, the series here in the Shack 15, which is really starting at the foundational moments, the early stages of what we really believe is kind of a new age of AI. I'm Pete Leyden. I am the founder of Reinvent Futures, along with Joe Boggio hosting this, the host here, curator of the conversation here, and helping convene all these interesting networks, which we're going to get into in a minute here about what's happening. So let me just start with a little quick review. First of all, how many people have been to one of these before? Oh my gosh, that's great. How many people have not then? I just want to see how many people. Okay, so we got about a half and half group, which is good to know. So here's what I'm going to do, just like the TV show, in the 30 seconds, get you up to speed on where we are in this thing. I'm going to give you the quick update for those that haven't been part of this thing. Is that we're actually operating on a couple premises here. One premise is that the arrival of generative AI last year was really going to be seen as a world historical moment. It really was the big bang of AI. We've had AI before. It's kind of been very specialized and very kind of resource heavy, and data scientists and coders could kind of make it do certain things. But by opening it up to everyone, it really was the beginning, like the big bang, like we saw with the opening of the web in the 90s, of which I was a part of that too with the early Wired magazine. And so we're treating this as kind of the beginning of literally nothing short of what we're going to call the AI age begins. That from this time on, humans are going to be augmented by intelligent machines. It's going to basically impact all kinds of things through the economy, our society. It's going to fundamentally change things, even almost at a civilization level over time. It's going to be with us for centuries. So when we're starting out, why we got to think through some of the more fundamental questions of what's going on. And what a better place to do it but than in San Francisco here. We're stealing this from Star Trek. Copyright, I don't know what they're going to think about that. But basically, there's our San Francisco, the place that gets reinvented over and over and over again. It's getting reinvented yet again. And here we are, ground zero in San Francisco. So if you're going to hold a kind of a gathering, a meeting of the minds to figure out some of these key questions of what's going on with AI, why not do it in San Francisco? You can do it other places as well, but what a place to tap into all the different networks, all the different thinkers, all the different people that have been working on this for so long. Last year, we did the beginning, the first season of this. We did things like looking at the real implications of AI. By the way, these are all generated by us. Good old Midjourney. We actually looked at the positive possibilities of this, trying to think big positively about it. We've also been looking at the actual risks, bringing together similar gatherings like this, jam-packed, had all kinds of media, had all kinds of folks in here, really wrestling with these questions. We go under the impression that nobody has all the answers, so what we want to do is get different perspectives from different people to kind of get us all thinking and then roll it into a larger conversation that rolls into a party so we can all cross-connect and keep figuring this stuff out. So today, this season, last month, we did one where we were wrestling with what is the case for techno-optimism around AI. Now this gives it away a little bit. It turns out most people were optimistic about it when it came to that one. But the idea here too is we're trying to keep a positive frame on AI. We're not going to sit there. We know there's plenty of issues and people are doomers, are going in a bunch of different directions. But we got plenty of that. We're going to try to breathe life into the positive possibilities of this. And this series, which is 6 of them this year, are essentially going to do that. We did this case for it and did a bunch of videos on that. A bunch of essays. You can find that all on Substack and on our website, also YouTube. That was last week. Now we're coming back to another kind of step of this, is we're trying to think, how can AI accelerate progress in clean energy and climate tech? Or larger thinking is, how can AI, this amazing tool that just burst on the scene in the last couple years here, how can we now apply this to probably the biggest challenge that humans have right now? It's really how are we're up against the wall on climate change. We really have to really do a lot of things fast, scale really, really quickly on many, many fronts. And all of a sudden, we got some new tools here to do this. Let's think about how we do that. And so that's the question of the night. And we got 10 people who are basically going to think about that coming up here. And we'll get to that in a little bit here. Now, what you're in the middle of here is essentially 3 kind of key networks. And I want to just say, there you are, boom, on the piece right there in the Bay Area here. Like I said, Reinvent Futures, myself and Joe Boggio, and our network here, including the people shooting here, we're kind of one crew, but we could not do this with our partners here. And one partner is BCGX. That's the kind of tech side of BCG, which is one of the premier, alongside McKinsey, probably the premier strategy consultancy in the world. They're dealing with top-level companies and governments all over the planet. They're bringing in their folks. And then Shack 15, this beautiful place, for those who haven't seen it, look at this incredible thing here. We couldn't do it without them to actually give us the space, the time. And also, and this is the key thing, all three kind of represent three networks. It isn't just about resources or space. What everyone here is bringing is a different kind of network into this conversation. And it's the cross-fertilization of these networks that's so important about this. I would say Reinvent Futures, my date to the founding of Wired or the founding era of Wired with the founders there. I kind of think of, I've been kind of cultivating the tech and innovation economy's intelligentsia, think about it as, with Berkeley and Stanford, and there's a kind of a tech intelligentsia, not the people the most famous or the most wealthy that came out of the whole tech world, but basically the ones that have been really thinking through the implications of the digital revolution and now I think the AI kind of age. But also Shack 15. Shack is a ground zero for what they call Cerebral Valley. A lot of the founders here, there's about, the people who are here, about 2,500 of them, founders or builders, many of them tapped into Gen AI. Some of the best of them are actually in the audience here too. We kind of cherry-picked some of them to come here. But also there's a thing called Cerebral Valley, a network of the kind of young up-and-coming builders who are, and the founders in the AI world, who are also here. And so there's a lot of the younger faces here are folks that know a lot about Gen AI, but also maybe not as much about the climate world. And then BCG, again, they're helping us pull this off, but they're also bringing in their networks, which are extraordinary networks. If you're going to solve climate change, if we're really going to scale AI, we need to do it with actually the real players in the global economy and these governments all over the world, and BCG brings that network to the space. What do we do with this AI? Now we're going to say the real impact we could do with this thing is to actually help solve climate. And so that's what we're going to turn to today for basically the bulk of this. One last thing I just want to say is here, we couldn't do this without our also sponsors. Google, these are sponsors that are in generative AI right now. Google, Adobe, Writer, B Capital, and Radium is a one of our new sponsors here coming in from Radium. And we're going to hear from a couple of people like that later. But basically, all of them are bringing both the resources but also the networks into this conversation. Because if we're going to make this work, we all got to make it work together. I also wanted to say here too, in this room, everybody was invite only, by the way, and so everybody in this room is really, really an interesting character. And so I just want to give a few shout outs here. We got Gen AI players in the room here now, to the extent of how many people have actually, they're trickling in, there's a Giants game, a bunch of things here. We got Gen AI players here from different things. We've got Gen AI, next generation leaders, I'd call it, basically who are in this space, but also really hyper networked into this world, who are actually coming here, the peak of the networks. We've got basically big tech giant reps from different companies, Google, Meta, Amazon, Apple are in here. We've basically got serial entrepreneurs. We got actually Adam Chair here, the co-founder of Siri, who was our speaker last time. And Adam is come back. He said, hey, this is such a good conversation, let's come back. We got Saul Griffith, we're going to hear from him later, who has literally founded about a dozen companies. I'll introduce him a little bit later. We've got, these are just people who, some of them not speaking. We got investors all over the place. Andrew Beebe, this is Obvious Ventures. We've got a bunch of different funds here, and beyond these, many, many other investors. We've got corporate leaders here. We got the basic chief sustainability officer of Levi Strauss is here, among others. We got senior people from Universal Pictures. We've got wise veterans from the past who will kind of give us some perspective here, including Mickey McManus, I'm seeing right here, who's also a serial entrepreneur. We could put him in different categories. We've got pioneering companies here. Daniel Erasmus came in from Amsterdam here. He's been in Erasmus AI for the last 15 years. He's got a thing called Climate GPT in the crowd here. And we basically also got media here. We've got folks from Axios, LA Times, David Bank, Impact Alpha that's been on this beat trying to figure out how to scale climate as fast as possible. And funny enough, we've got one of the writer-producers of HBO's Silicon Valley here, so maybe they can come up with another season of Cerebral Valley. But anyhow, we got media here, we got climate OGs who've been around in the climate world. We're going to hear from Joel in a minute here. Think tanks and labs. We got Jason Crawford in from, I think, Baltimore. He's coming from Roots of Progress. Many other folks, Lawrence Berkeley Labs here. And then we've got leading academics here. We're going to hear from Jeff from Stanford here, but others in Berkeley. We always have Berkeley, Stanford folks. It's no event unless you get a couple of those in there. But anyhow, the point is everybody here afterwards, we're going to have a lot of time to talk about it and kind of mingle and cross-connect and figure out ways to work together. There's a lot of interesting characters. Just kind of look at the badge and kind of strike up a conversation and go. Now, I'm going to start here just by giving a little tee up. to remind us, not that everyone here has got to be convinced about climate. I just want to give what we're up against, and then we're going to have our group of speakers take these 5-minute pops at the question here. One is just remembering how bad we're up against here, folks. This is CO2 in the atmosphere since the time Jesus has been rocking around. Basically, as it went up in the Industrial Revolution, that's a bad direction, but let's just say we did it. It got worse than that. If we really can think about since Homo sapiens, our bodies, our brains emerged about 300,000 years ago. Those are the ice ages. We've never seen carbon this high in the atmosphere. I mean, we can get into dinosaur territory, but human beings have never wandered around with this kind of thing in the atmosphere. This is, we're building the carbon up now, but what's interesting about this chart, with China and them piling on recently here, is the United States and the developed economies are flattening how much carbon we're putting in the atmosphere. And it's worth pointing out that the advanced economies collectively are now basically back putting in as much CO2 as what we were doing in the 70s. Yet our economies are much bigger, growing much faster, or not much faster, but much bigger economies. So we know how to peak it, we know how to drive it down, and of course what we've been watching in the kind of COP is how do we actually get the entire world peaking and everyone driving down and across this century bring it down. Now again, most people in the room aren't going to deny this. I just want to lay it out. This is a very big challenge. And many people in climate are just doomers and are thinking it's over. And so what we're going to say is all of a sudden we got this new tool that comes up in the form of AI, let's just say broadly. It doesn't have to be generative AI, but we've got this new tool of AI. How could we use it to actually use it to supercharge progress or accelerate it as much as possible? And that's the question of the night. But I want to gauge the optimism in the room, or the not. And this has been an interesting night. I actually thought I'd be more optimistic. There's a lot of kind of not optimism. There was a lot of kind of, it's climate and it's AI. They're both they're clashing. But let's we did this last time on our case for optimism, and then we kind of developed this little speedometer of techno-optimism or techno-pessimism, think about it that way. But we're going to take this statement, AI will be a tool in helping us solve global warming, or stop global warming and solve, in quotes, because we're not really going to solve climate change by 2050. But let's just say we actually are going to be able to hit generally these goals. And then we heard some things about how that's going to be hard to do. But I just want to say, an AI didn't have to solve everything, but it's going to help us there. Now, the main thing here is how you feel about how we're going to actually hit this. We actually are going to stop global warming and to some extent mitigate climate change to the place where we can kind of move on in ways that we're hoping to do. And you can only vote once, and I want to gauge which of those are you going to feel from. How worried are you about this, and how confident do you think we're actually going to hit it? That'll be a good way to connect us all and actually roll us into the next conversations, of which we're all going to talk amongst ourselves. So let's hear how many, a show of hands, you can only show your hands once, by the way. How many are seriously worried that we're not going to hit this and we're going to be remotely far from all this? There's a hand there. There's hands in the back there. Okay, interesting. Hands, hands, hands. All right. That was a seriously worried. How about you're mostly worried? Okay. Oh, gosh. Okay, that's starting to get a lot more folks up in there. A lot of hands there. How about you're feeling generally good? We're going to pull this thing off. Now, that's interesting. That's actually probably about as much as the last one. We're going to, by the way, you're all on camera, so we'll be able to handpick this later when we write it up. Mostly confident. We're going to pull this thing off. Let's see the kind of can-do, mostly confidence. That's interesting. Okay. And how many are fully confident? Actually, they were going to pull this thing off. I'll put my head up there. I should. Oh, and John actually put his head up there. All right. Anyhow, the point is a lot of food for thought here. A lot of stretching our mind. I wanted to kind of, we don't have the time here. We kind of pushed those 5 minutes to the point where we can't really open it up to a lot more conversation in general here, but we are going to spill over now into a kind of more of a party. There's food, there's drink. We're going to basically have some music here. Reconnect with yourselves, reconvene basically in different subgroups if you want to, and keep this conversation going. And I will say, keep on we're going to do the next one we're going to do is how can AI accelerate progress in bioengineering and healthcare, that whole world, which is kind of sustainability in many respects, bioengineering. That's going to come up on June 12th, Wednesday, another Wednesday like this. Think about who would be great about coming with you. Bring another colleague who has some kind of expertise in that or interest in that world. And we're going to bring together another great crew with this. But for now, I would just say we've got this on video. We're going to be writing it up on my Substack here under the Great Progression. That's the URL for it. We're going to have the AI Age Begins. We'll write essays on what we learned here together. We're going to basically piece together all these videos. We'll put them in our, also on YouTube there. But actually, for now, let's just all connect, hang out, and have a good party here. Thanks for all the people that made this happen, and let's hang out.